Let's look at the bigger picture here and talk to Kurt Volker, who served as U.S. ambassador to NATO from 2008 to 2009. He's joining us from Washington. Good to have you with us, Ambassador. So in the bigger picture, there is a timetable. That is the reality. And most foreign troops, will be leaving by the end of 2014. Are you satisfied that Afghan security forces will be able to take control of the country?
Well, first, let me just say that I am extremely impressed with the elite forces of Afghanistan, and I think there's been significant progress in the training and development of the Afghan security forces over the past couple of years. But that said, when you take a step back, as you said, you're looking at the whole country, and you're asking yourself, are the Afghan security forces as a whole, all of them, able to exercise the protection of the Afghan population and to carry out security throughout the entire country without the support of the foreign forces that have been there for so long. And I have to say I'm very skeptical that even a year from now that the Afghan security forces will be able to do that on their own.
Ambassador, NATO's primary responsibility was to provide security across the country. So does that mean that the mission by NATO has failed?
No, I don't think so. I think what's happened, though, is that we've decided to pull back. I think, have made tremendous progress in Afghanistan over the past 10, 12 years. We've seen progress in security, we've seen progress in schools, we've seen it in healthcare, in governance, so there has been tremendous development in Afghanistan. The problem is that this is a country that was destroyed by war for 30 years, and it takes a long time to rebuild the fabric of a society. And I just think that setting a deadline for the accomplishment of that, of 2014, and saying we're out by then, is not the best way to ensure that the gains that we've made become truly sustainable and lasting for the Afghan people.
You talk about the gains that have made in the institutions, but the fact of the matter is that in 2013, the number of civilian deaths in Afghanistan rose by about 23%, and that's only in the first half of the year. And you speak of the deadline, so is it realistic to stick to this deadline? Should it be perhaps looked at again?
Well, the first thing to note is that the number of civilian deaths is a function of the Taliban attacks, so that they are making an effort to raise their level of attacks to convince the foreign forces
right, but the point of NATO
go ahead
going
with their
in,
departure.
The point of NATO going in as well into Afghanistan was to defeat the Taliban, and has that been done?
Right. Right, and that's what has not happened. That's exactly right. So the Taliban, I think, has regrouped. It has come back. It is fighting in Afghanistan. They're trying to play their role in such a way to encourage the foreign forces to depart as soon as possible. And they're very, I think, not satisfied, maybe not by the word, but they are working with the deadline of 2014 as well. And I do think that the problem is that if the foreign forces go below a certain threshold, and I think we're almost certainly going to go below that threshold, then if the Afghan forces are not able to maintain security, particularly, for example, if there's an election that leaves a somewhat chaotic political situation, the foreign forces won't be able to recover from that, and you'll start to see the Taliban exercise full control in parts of Afghanistan and a fragmentation of the country. And I think it's a tremendous risk that we face as we move into 2014.
Okay, and just once again, let me ask you about the exit strategy. I mean, should it be reassessed, and do you see any scenario, in fact, where it will be reassessed?
Well, I don't think it's likely to be reassessed. I think that both in the United States and in Europe and NATO, we've all committed ourselves now to this deadline, so I think it's very unlikely. But I do say that I think the most significant thing that could be done would be to start putting out there as benchmarks for accomplishment the conditions on the ground that need to be met to allow for the withdrawal of forces, rather than just making it a function of the calendar. If that were to be done, we could still provide benchmarks for the accomplishments of the Afghan National Security Forces, execute a handover, but do it on a timetable that is warranted by the facts on the ground, rather than just by the desire to be out by 2014.
All right, Ambassador, very good to get your thoughts with us on Al Jazeera. Thank you. That's Ambassador Kurt Volker speaking to us from Washington. Well, we'll have more on Afghanistan.